Now a story of hope through the extracurricular efforts of a public school in a remote community to turn young lives around. One of the identified practical problems in Indigenous disadvantage in Australia is getting Aboriginal children to stay at and actually finish secondary school. Truancy and dropping out, suspension for bad behaviour, teenage pregnancy, alcohol and cannabis abuse, violence, criminality and dysfunction are the antisocial fallout. The Menindee Central School appears to have broken this pattern through sheer hard work, job-creating traineeships and clever strategy. It involves a committed school principal and local Aboriginal elders. It's the Menindee Method. Sunrise over the Menindee Lakes, now full to the brim, southeast of Broken Hill. With this replenishment of the landscape also comes new hope for the people of this remote region. And it's all started here at Menindee Central School, where 85% of the students are Indigenous. Principal Brian Debus, 67, arrived in Menindee 5 years ago to confront both the school and the town's entrenched problems.
Radish, carrots, beef.
An audit had found absenteeism was high, academic outcomes were low. Students had poor basic skills, with hardly any completing the HSC. There was much work to be done. Slowly, that's being turned around.
If I had 10 parts and I had 5 tenths, and what's another name for 5 tenths? We take the kids as they are when they come into the school, and their growth is the important, and that's what we get from those statistics, which sometimes never shows as a green on a mice score. It's always red, but that's not shown. I think it's starting to come in there, but that's not my worry. My worry is basically working with each of these kids. And one of the things that we're really pleased about was our attendance. Like last year we had 12 students at risk, and we're down now to 3, which is pretty good out of about 110, 112, 16 kids.
That's a lot of effort, a lot of one-on-one effort, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not just me. It's everybody is doing that. Like year 8 last week had 100% attendance, which is just great. And the kids are starting to see that that's a positive. They want to be here.
So you're going to be on the radio this week?
Yeah, every Wednesday.
Menindee, population 981, so they say, had few local job and training opportunities. Broken Hill's over 100 kilometres away and has its own problems. Mr Debus had a plan, but he needed community support.
This was a group of people who were very firm in what they wanted, and we worked with them. We had a lot of arguments, and we certainly on occasions disagreed, even to the point of me going to the point of resigning. But nevertheless, there was an accommodation, and we got back together. And that's been the really good part.
Daniel Fusey is what's called an Aboriginal male educator. He's also the rugby league ref. It's his job to chase up the truants, delinquents and scallywags and get them to come to school.
I'll go to any extent to get them to come to school. They can't hide from me, they can't run or nothing. And it's just telling the parents the importance of school and attendance. Oh, we had a young kid that every morning I'd knock. Mum was trying to get him to school, but he wasn't listening, and every morning I'd knock to get him to come to school. He'd run out the window and dive out the window and hide. So after a week or so of this, I got a bit sick of it. So when I knocked on the door, Mum said, "You can come and get him if you want." And he dove out the window. I dove out after him, and I chased and I followed him the whole for about an hour to find out where he was going, and then to get him to see what his problems were. And then we ended up getting him down to school to have a meeting and stuff and work out what his dramas were.
No one's aimed.
Because he's been out of the system for so long, we started to have to do partials and got him back into full-time and then day-by-day basis, setting goals, but he was out of it for more than 2 years before we got him back.
Over the years, Mr Fusey, who's a local himself with a deep family history at Menindee, spots trouble and supports kids who've got into it. His original list of 30 troubled kids is now down to 2.
I had a kid with a traineeship that was having a problem attending his traineeship in year 11. So I used to go around there in the morning at 5:30, wake him up. The first week, his alarm didn't go off, so I went around and woke him up. Then the next week, he had no lunch, so I said, all right, you go off and I'll bring you out some lunch, and took him out some lunch. And then the third week, he had no uniform, so I took lunch around there with a uniform ready. And then the next week, he locked me out. He lived by himself, 17-year-old, so I stood there knocked for 45 minutes until he opened the door. And then after a couple of weeks of this, he sent me a text message 5:30 in the morning, said, don't worry about getting up. I'm already up, I've caught the bus out, I'm going to work, I've got everything, so it's all worth it in the end.
If someone was to play up at school, a lot of Department of Education policies may well say to exclude them from the school, whether it be for a short-term or a long-term suspension. Here at Menindee, their strategies are about getting the young people into school. For that to take place, they need the families out there to support them, and that's one thing that they get. There's a very strong community spirit here.
Menindee Aboriginal elders, all women, told the school principal what they wanted for the town's children. There have been disputes and disagreements on methods, to the point where the principal called the Menindee women the firm.
It's a bit of a name that Brian gave a group of us Aboriginal women that have really been there to work with the school, and at times having a bit of a fighting along the way, should I say, or quite a few disagreements in the way about education and that. We have been strong, but we are, like a lot of people will tell you, that us Aboriginal women in our community do fight for what we feel is the best for our children, and in particular the education for our kids. We don't expect anything less for our kids just because we're in a remote country town. We all expect that our children will go on to finish their year 11 and 12, but not only that, to go on then to further studies and employment. And that's what we've really been fighting for, and we actually achieved in quite a few areas as well.
There are few jobs or training places at Menindee. Mr Debus and the firm decided to create them through an enterprise park on school grounds. They acquired and installed 2 vintage railway carriages, a dining car and a sleeper car, to create tourist accommodation with a nearby kitchen. Menindee kids take paid training places. The business plan will soon involve a manufacturing assembly line to create a product for sale, single-unit demountable accommodation, much in demand in the region. There's also the school farm to give kids a taste and training for agriculture and field work.
On your top 3 lines.
Menindee Central School covers kindergarten to year 12. It takes a lot of first-year teachers and sometimes those with life experience.
So let's read this first part, application letters.
We met English teacher Jane Dunbar, a former advertising executive with Young and Rubicam. Returning to Australia after long stints working overseas, she dusted off her old teacher qualification and applied for a job.
So you've got to sell yourself, outlining your positive qualities.
We just took a leap of faith. Brian was confident it's a fantastic place. He said it's probably the most exciting place you can ever teach at. And so we moved out here, and he was right. At first I didn't really know what to make of the place and struggled a bit getting to know the kids. But once you live here, I don't know how I'm ever going to leave. It's such a fabulous place to be. The people are great, the kids are great.
And number one tool is what, guys? For making art.
Rick Ball is an accomplished artist. He currently has an exhibition at Surrey Hills. He's a regular art tutor at Menindee Central and somehow is extracted from his students some exquisite work. Commercial dealers have bought some of the pieces.
They say, I can't do such and such. I can't draw, for example. And I say, look, interesting observation. What you can't do is none of your business. What is your business is finding out what you can do. So can we get on with this? And taking the expectations of our drawing properly